Hi, this is Tim Weaver from CMVG, and I'm here with Dan Dawkins, Editor-in-Chief of PSM3. How you doing, Dan?
Yeah, good, thanks.
Dan's going to talk to us a little bit about PlayStation rumours, E3 rumours, everything to do with E3. We're going to kick this off. This is part of a series. We're going to kick it off with PlayStation. We're going to go on to Xbox. Then we're going to do Nintendo. And then we're going to do a general look at other bits and bobs that are going to be kicking around the show. Now, this sort of speculation is going to be quite informed, I reckon, Dan. Having chatted to you a little bit off air, you seem to be quite in the know, so I'm hoping that the people out there will be able to get a real taste of what's coming up. Let's deal with the elephant in the room first. PlayStation 4, is it going to be at the show or is it not?
I would suggest not, in the physical form of a man coming on stage like Ken Kutaragi did with PS3, like wobbling on stage holding a giant silver box, like here it is, I hold aloft the PlayStation 4. I think that's exceedingly unlikely. However, at the start of the year, I believe Sony's plan was to show PlayStation 4 at the show, as indeed it was Microsoft's plan to show Xbox 720 or whatever it should be called. However, I think they've both probably, through explicit or through a series of coded signals played out in public, indicated to each other it really would be good if we didn't show, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Particularly given the broader landscape of game sales falling, them both needing to build as much money and a war chest effectively to launch what would be a very expensive next generation set of systems. So I think it's very important for them to... I mean, I think the best case scenario for us as gamers in terms of excitement might be if Microsoft, at the end of their show, which goes first, go, and we're always thinking about the future here at Microsoft, here's a little glimpse of our next generation thoughts. And they might have a guy from Unreal perhaps come on stage, do a real-time demo, but I don't think they're not going to show a piece of hardware. I'd be absolutely flabbergasted if they did.
So if Microsoft's sort of nod to the next generation is going to be wheeling on Cliffy B to say, hey, we're working on Unreal Engine 4, look what we can do with this night and all this lava, what is PlayStation's version of that going to be? PlayStation,
I think they will have, because they have to have, a sort of an in case of emergency break glass next-gen video. Now, I really don't know what that could be. If I had to speculate sensibly, I would say it's something like a next-generation Killzone demo, because there would be no smarter way, in my mind, to reveal the next generation of PlayStation than to play upon, I guess, the farce of the original Killzone footage.
Yeah.
Where there was quite infamous Killzone video, which was clearly shown as fake CGI quite a number of years ago. Now, what I would have done is taken that on stage and gone, ladies and gentlemen, the next generation of PlayStation, and put on a big Killzone video, made it look ridiculous and hokum and preposterous, and then they'd have gone, everyone would have jeered and gone, oh, not this again, Sony. Then I'd have had Kazurai walk on stage holding a pad going, well, don't mind me, I'm just playing Killzone 4 on PlayStation 4 and moving the camera about. I don't think they won't have that, but I mean, they might have a sort of a target video or something running on real hardware specs or something that's more tangible than going, we got some CGI company to hook something up. That I think they'll only break that out if Microsoft do similar at their show, because they can look at what Microsoft did and react accordingly if they think they need to steal some of the headline and attention back to themselves. But I think largely, like you say, PS4 is the elephant in the room, and as I've written in a piece for PSM3 magazine upcoming, I think they'll make it hard to see the elephant in the room by having a fireworks display in the garden. They'll do everything to pretend, or not even to pretend, to say PS3 is here, it's got a great future ahead of it, and hey, PS Vita, that's great.
Yeah, well, you mentioned Vita. Let's talk a little bit about Vita, and then we'll come back to more about the conference itself. So Vita presumably is going to play out pretty big this year. They launched it. I mean, would it be fair to say it's not kind of met people's expectations?
Yes. I mean, I think the hardware came out, initial buzz, all the critics certainly went, wow, this is a great machine. All it needs is the games. But this is back where we were with PSP, and we can all see how that turned out. And since the launch, which is a great launch lineup, it was a very strong and broad launch lineup, but without perhaps a truly stellar must-buy title, just a good breadth of quality. Since then, it's absolute radio silence. And we've had effectively, we've got Gravity Rush coming up, which is quite exciting, but incredibly niche and won't particularly sell and certainly won't shift units. So they need to make PS Vita centre stage and make it look exciting and compelling again. They're desperate to sell PS Vitas. So the broad context of Sony's entire conference, and this is the beyond the elephant, the super, the gigantosaur mammoth in the room, is that Sony lost £3.6 billion over the last financial year.
It's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money, but it's the equivalent of buying 550, I think I worked out the other day, Cristiano Ronaldo's.
Right.
It's outrageous.
Yeah. I mean, it is a ton of money. So, I mean, how do they go about doing that? They do that with games, you say. So let me read some names out to you, and you can talk a little bit about these. These are games that we here on CVG might be coming out. Okay, might be announced for Vita at the show.
Okay.
Little Big Planet.
Yeah, nailed on.
Assassin's Creed.
My sources indicate.
Right.
If I was a betting man, I think that's a smart bet.
Okay. Do you think it'll be an Assassin's Creed 3, or do you think it'll be Assassin's Creed bespoke for Vita?
I think it's at worst likely to be cross-compatible with Assassin's Creed 3.
Okay.
If not indeed Assassin's Creed 3.
Okay. Call of Duty?
Well, this is confirmed. As in, when they announced Vita, they said, we have Call of Duty coming for PS Vita.
Black Ops 2, though, or something? That
would be logic. I honestly don't know anymore. And, as an indication, even a few months ago, the people we deal with at Activision didn't know themselves what was happening with it. That's not to say it isn't happening. And it would be very strange if there was an announcement made and it didn't exist. What with it being pretty much the biggest game in the Western world, I'd expect it to be there.
Would it be fair to say that the West needs Vita in the West needs Call of Duty as much as they need Monster Hunter in the East?
Yeah, definitely. I think in Japan, if you announce Monster Hunter, that takes it to a different place, and it's exactly what it did for Nintendo's consoles over there. So Sony would be really keen to get a Monster Hunter. Yeah,
and do you think it'll be the similar kind of effect if they get Call of Duty here, or?
I think it's about as big a card as they can play in the West, though it would rely on it actually functionally being a good experience, and I think that's the big question mark, and they can show it running and it might look like the traditional console experience, but if the network element isn't up to scratch, which is yet to be proven, it's not the killer touch we were hoping.
I guess one of the other questions with putting Call of Duty onto Vita is, people already buy Call of Duty in their droves, and a lot of people will want Call of Duty in its sort of purest kind of most developed form, i.e. on Xbox or on PlayStation 3. So why would anyone want to get it on Vita? Do you know what I mean? I mean, it's unless it has some sort of new kind of feature set or something.
I think the way you would make it compelling is to make it a persistent experience, so that if you have, and this is quite possible given the nature of Call of Duty Elite as a service, you could be consistently building up your stats and your XP and gaining new weapons, so you're always working towards one goal rather than having a sort of disparate Vita version and Black Ops 2. If it all is part of the same account, there's a reason to say I've got half hour, I'm just going to chip away at building up my XP and my, getting towards the prestige. Yeah.
Okay, moving on from Call of Duty, CVG, we reckon a major HD collection might be announced. Speculation on that? Have you heard anything? What do you think it might be? Well,
we discussed this off air because I'll be honest with you, I don't know what it could be. I mean, what you can do is work backwards from what already exists. God of War has been done. That's major. We discussed Killzone, but in truth there aren't that many non-HD games, and I wouldn't consider that major at all. Metal Gear is major.
Although it's worth pointing out that Sony probably do think it would be major. But I agree with you, I don't think they'll do Killzone.
Yeah, I don't think that's a big deal. I think that Metal Gear would be big, but it's been done and also come out on Vita. So, the truth is, of the biggest things you could do outside of Call of Duty, which is essentially HD anyway, you're looking at Grand Theft Auto, and that would be colossal.
Yeah, it would be massive.
So you can bring GTA 3, Vice City, San Andreas across in HD, That's sensational.
Yeah.
Then, if you make them, you take the step further and you bring them out on PS3 and on PS Vita. PS Vita's then got its GTA games, provided it doesn't get a bespoke GTA game.
No, that would be massive. Okay, let's sort of wheel back towards the conference, which we left at the beginning. Let's talk about what might aside from Vita might get and PlayStation 4 get talked about. So no PS4, or at least not in the form we think it's going to be. So what will there be? Quantic Dream are tipped to show a new game. Yeah.
You look at the fact that at, the Games Developer Conference they showed off the really impressive Kara tech demo. It's going to use that technology, we hear, and everything I've been led to believe suggests that they are going to be one of, if not the key announcement at the Sony conference. And I think it might even be one of the games of the show. I'd be as bold as to state.
Okay. Agent being, sorry for people who don't know, Rockstar's long in development, PS3 only. What?
I mean, from the bit of research I did on Agent years ago when it was first announced, I think it was going to be kind of like a James Bond simulator.
Yeah.
Where it was going to be like taking the best bits of GTA's action moments and just smashing it all together into this big globe-trotting Spy Who Loved Me style action game. I think around about the same time when Uncharted came out and probably blew every plan they had out of the water.
Yeah.
And other things have happened. And I just honestly don't know what's happened to that game.
No.
I've spoken to people connected with Rockstar, and the impression is that game certainly exists or has existed. As regards its status, completely unknown.
Because a sort of side issue of that is, of course, GTA 5, but we've just heard today that Rockstar aren't going to be anywhere near the show. So, as we said off air, it could mean that they announce an HD collection, but they wouldn't have to be at the show to kind of announce that, because that would be under Sony's umbrella. But it certainly suggests that Agent probably isn't going to turn up at E3.
It's just, I just don't know how it could suddenly arrive from nowhere. I think it's one of those things they've said and then gone, oh, fiddle-dee-dee, you wish we hadn't said that.
Yeah.
Let's just hush it all up.
Okay.
And I remember in the context, that game was announced on the back of a particularly strong Microsoft conference where Sony had to react. I think it was when Microsoft had stolen Metal Gear, and Sony was kind of under pressure to bounce back with something. They perhaps said something they shouldn't have.
Yeah.
Or maybe, hey, the game has existed, but it's not at a state where Rockstar are happy to show it. And you've got to think, with GTA 5 on the horizon...
Yeah.
That's going to be their big focus for, let's say, the next 6 months to a year. And then in 18 months, we're probably looking at the next generation. On this generation, what's the window for Agent?
Well, there isn't one, is there? Really?
And then you're looking at it becoming a PlayStation 4 game.
So, are there going to be is there going to be anything else at the conference that is going to be genuinely surprising? We hear rumours that there might be a quote-unquote surprise announcement. It's not going to be PS4, we don't think. So what could it be, do you think? There
is a surprise. I understand there's two big surprises.
Right.
Now, one of them appears to be, I think, outed, from what I understand, in terms of the cage being there.
Yeah.
I also hear there's one other quite shock. Not the biggest shock of all time. It's something that you'd imagine Sony, it's something they have experience with and not completely unexpected, but I think the fact that it would be arriving now would make people go, oh, didn't see that coming.
Should point out here for people listening that Dan is quite NDA'd up on a lot of this stuff. So the stuff you can talk about, you are talking about, and the stuff you sound a bit more reticent about is because you can't talk about it.
I'm dancing on the rim of what I can give away, but I
You think fans will be pleased about this?
Yeah. Definitely, they'll be pleased, and I think again it depends on the actual nature and extent of the platforms that this announcement is span across. But it's a nice, pleasant surprise. Okay,
so finally wrapping up, Sony, in your opinion, are set to have a good E3, middling E3, bad E3. I mean, how do you see it? How do you see it falling?
Middling, solid. What they've got to do is consolidate a path towards the next generation whilst not giving the game away and saying, oh God, PlayStation 4 is only 18 months away. So they're really under duress to deliver right now, and they're going to have really strong demos of now software. And I say now, like next 6 months to 12 months software. They'll have The Last of Us on stage. That's going to look fantastic. People will be like, wow, that looks great. That's a really solid game. Rumours of this Cage project. They've got God of War Ascension to show.
Yep.
Single player demo of that would be huge. They've got PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale, which is kind of stupid but might be quite fun at the show. You've got LBP Vita, like we've discussed. They've got LBP karting. That's not really a big deal. They're also probably going to dance around. We haven't forgotten you guys who bought 3D TVs or PS Moves. There'll be some token concession towards that. Something we haven't touched upon, I guess this could be quite significant, is that there's rumours that Sony are doing a deal with a major cloud-based
yes, of course,
company. Now, sensible speculation would be they've tied up with either OnLive or Gaikai,
which is run by
Dave Perry,
who people may remember from way back when.
Earthworm Jim of about 20 to 30 years ago.
MDK and those sort of things,
and more recently made a Matrix game.
Yeah.
But he's not doing that now. He's making these the dreams of the future.
Yeah.
So that could be a really significant deal, because not just about today, but I think what they could announce, for example, on PlayStation 3 is a new online, cloud streaming game service. So you could get access to a vast selection of the PlayStation library via, this cloud service.
Yeah.
Which could be PS2 games, it could be PS3 games. The ramifications looking further forward are that PlayStation 4, if as rumoured, it's a collection of PC off-the-shelf chips and doesn't contain the cell chip that powers PS3, it would be irrelevant in terms of backward compatibility if, on a remote server, you're cloud streaming all of the PS3 library. So you're creating like a Spotify for games. That's a colossal announcement. Again, we'll have to see the scale of it.
The interesting thing about that is it's almost like one of the sort of, I mean, I didn't even mention it, and yet it's, like you say, it is such a huge part of, it gives you a real, even if they don't announce PS4, it gives you a real indication of where they're going and where their thinking is going.
Yeah.
And it also sort of maybe plays into the whole HD Collection announcement, because that could be how they get the clouds streaming thing off the ground, is with these things that don't require so much horsepower, Well,
I think that would be fascinating if they could say, as of this November, the GTA HD Collection will be available to stream directly yours for, and there might be a set fee a month, it might be a PS Plus inducement, who really knows, to say for stream for this much a month, it's there, it's the only place to play it. That's fantastic. Particularly with something like GTA, from people I know who've been involved with a lot of the the cloud streaming game services so far, they say it's really good, except that there's the smallest and most minute lag between input and response. And they're saying, obviously that could derail a game like a FIFA or something where you really want that crisp second-to-second movement. But with something like a GTA, where it's not quite such a precision experience, that would be a great lead point for it.
Yeah. All right, thanks, Dan. We'll see how much of this comes true.
Fingers crossed.